at some point I decided that certain standards in my life were non-negotiables. Standards around how I spent my time, who I spend it with, and how I let people treat me. And what really surprised me was that not everyone could handle the fact that I had standards that were not up for negotiation. So for me, on a daily basis, really, that means asking myself one simple question about everything I do, everyone I spend time with, and everything I let into my life. And this question basically is, does this nourish or support me in my development in some way? And that really doesn't mean everything has to be productive in an obvious way, right? Sometimes the value might just be to rest or to have peace, right? So when I watch a series, the question I ask myself is, do I feel more nourished after than before? And if the answer is no, I don't watch it. So in my case, that means no more true crime. Really only things that make me feel good and put me in a positive state. And in my case, for instance, that's Gilmore Girls. And the same thing really goes for people too. So I don't spend time with people if I feel worse afterwards. And I mean, that should probably be a no-brainer. But it's not only that. So I want contact to actually add something, right? Not because the other person has to be useful to me, right? But because I want to feel good while I am in contact with them, have a real exchange, and also come away feeling enriched in some way, right? So, for instance, if we have just gossiped or sat in some kind of low energy, that's really not serving anybody. And also, if I feel like the other person doesn't appreciate that I'm choosing to spend quality time with them, then I'm also out pretty soon. And that actually doesn't mean that I'm not there for the people I care about when they are going through a hard time, right? Of course I am. But there is a difference between that being the exception and that being the rule. And it gets really difficult when this becomes the rule, especially when there is some type of victim-helper dynamic starting to develop, right? And one thing I pay very close attention to is how people talk to me. So I'm not talking about being easily offended, right? I'm talking actually about basic respect. So obvious rudeness is probably something most people won't put up with. But what is much more common are the subtle digs, the undertones, the little comments that are just slightly off, right? And by now, I really have zero tolerance for those. And that really doesn't mean that I call it out every time, right? But the moment I notice that someone is being manipulative, condescending, or dismissive, nowadays, I distance myself very quickly. And I also make sure that there is as little contact as possible going forward, right? And what I have noticed is that most people really don't expect that at all. So whether I quietly step back or whether I draw a clear line, they are often caught completely off guard, right? Because apparently they didn't see it coming. And a lot of them are really irritated by it. And that says something, I think. So in my experience, a lot of people are so unused to someone setting boundaries that they really don't see it coming. And then so often they are irritated by it, even though it wasn't aggressive, it wasn't dramatic, it really just was clear. And, in my case, that really meant that some friendships had to go. But on the other hand, also in my experience, most people really learn pretty quickly. So the clearer I am with my boundaries and the faster I react, the sooner they usually get it. But if I have let something slide like 100 times and then I draw a line at the 101st, it's really harder for people to adjust. But when I am really clear from the start, people tend to develop respect very quickly. And yeah, I guess a lot of people are somewhere on that journey too, right? So yeah, what about you? Is there like an area in your life where you have raised your standards and it actually changed something in your life? Let me know down in the comments. See you soon.